You know those massive engineering projects, right? We're talking titans of concrete and steel that cost billions and take decades to build. They seem absolutely unstoppable, built on these super meticulous plans, but behind the scenes there's this hidden force that can bring even the most rock-solid project to its knees. So let's uncover what that is and why it stops them dead in their tracks.
So, what is it? I mean, why do these seemingly unsinkable projects suddenly hit an iceberg and just go under? It's a question that keeps managers, investors, and, whole governments up at night. And the answer, it turns out, is almost always something you just can't see coming.
The source material for this whole explainer has a name for this force: turbulence. And let's be clear, this isn't about a bad schedule or messing up a calculation. Turbulence is about the truly unforeseeable shocks, like a sudden financial crisis, a new law that changes everything overnight, or a massive shift in public opinion. These are the kinds of things that no risk management plan in the world can predict.
All right, so let's dive into what actually happens when those perfect plans crash into the messy reality of turbulence, and why our traditional way of thinking about risk just isn't cut out for the job.
Okay, check this out, because this visual really nails the problem. Traditional project management, it's awesome at handling the stuff on the left, the anticipated risks, the things we can see, analyze, and make a plan for. But the real project killers, they live over there on the right, the unanticipated events, the stuff you just had no way of knowing about. That big gap in the middle, that's where turbulence lives.
And this is where it gets really scary. When turbulence hits, projects don't just trip up, they can go into a total freefall. The source calls it a spiral of disintegration. It's where everyone starts blaming each other, contracts become weapons instead of agreements, and the whole thing just starts to unravel. It's a chain reaction that can absolutely destroy a project from the inside out.
So if we can't predict turbulence, how in the world do we survive it? Well, the answer isn't a better crystal ball. It's a totally different way of building projects from the very beginning. It's a concept called governability. Let's see how this thing works.
So here's the crucial point. Governability isn't a plan. It's a capacity. Think of it like a project's immune system. It's the built-in ability for the entire organization to take a punch, react as one team, and adapt without completely falling apart. It's all about designing for survival, not just for a perfect world success.
I love this comparison because it makes it so clear. A traditional, brittle project is like a pane of glass. It looks strong, it follows a very rigid plan, but the second it gets a shock it wasn't designed for, it shatters. A governable project, though, is more like bamboo. It's designed to adapt to the storm, to bend with the pressure, but, and this is the key, it doesn't break.
Okay, so you want to build a bamboo project, not a glass one. How do you actually do that? Well, the research points to 6 key properties that, when you design them into a project's DNA, create this governability. Think of them as the 6 pillars of resilience.
First up is internal cohesion. You know how when turbulence hits, the first thing people do is start pointing fingers? Well, a governable project has a strong, unified ownership with clear leadership. This stops the internal blame game before it starts and makes sure everyone is pulling in the same direction to solve the problem, not make it worse.
Second, you've got to have long-term coalitions. These are the strong, lasting relationships you build with everyone involved, from your key suppliers to government agencies. When a crisis hits, the last thing you want is to be dealing with strangers. You need a network of trusted partners who are actually invested in finding a solution with you.
The third property is reserves. And hey, this isn't just about having a big pile of cash. Reserves can be any kind of shock absorber. Yeah, contingency funds, but also things like political goodwill or extra technical experts you can call on when the unexpected happens. It's your project's emergency go bag.
Property number 4 is a big one: flexibility. A brittle project locks everything down with rigid, ironclad contracts. A governable project builds in the ability to adapt. This could mean putting rendezvous clauses into contracts that pre-plan how you'll renegotiate if the world changes. It lets you change course instead of just sailing straight into an iceberg.
Number 5, generativity, is all about the culture. It's about creating an environment where creative solutions to new problems can pop up from anyone at any level. I mean, when you're facing a problem nobody's ever seen before, you need brand new ideas, and a governable project is designed to generate them.
And finally, number 6, diversification. This is that classic rule you've heard a million times. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. By spreading your risks across different financial backers or having multiple ways to bring in revenue, you make sure that one single failure can't bring the whole house down.
Okay, so those are the 6 properties. But how do you actually build them into a real-world project? Let's open up the toolkit and look at some of the specific devices managers use to make this governability thing a reality.
And this is where the theory gets real. This chart shows how specific strategies, or devices, directly build those properties. So to get that internal cohesion, you might create an alliance of owners who all have skin in the game. For flexibility, you use those rendezvous clauses we talked about. And to build those long-term relationships, you might use something called a frame agreement.
And here is a fantastic real-world example of that. To develop these really challenging oil fields, Norsk Hydro and BP didn't just hire suppliers for a single job. They created frame agreements, which basically guaranteed the supplier's business for the next 5 years. And in return, the suppliers invested their own money in R&D and shared their best tech. It turned a simple contract into a super powerful long-term coalition.
Okay, let's pull this all together. What is the big takeaway from all this? Why does shifting from just planning to thinking about governability matter so much for, well, anyone involved in a high-stakes project?
The core message here is a huge shift in mindset. For decades, we've kind of been taught that project success comes from creating a perfect, super detailed plan that thinks of everything. But the research is clear. That's an illusion. The future is, by its very nature, unpredictable. You just can't plan for everything.
So at the end of the day, the real goal isn't to plan the journey perfectly. It's to build a ship that can handle any storm. Real success comes from building a resilient, adaptable organization that has the cohesion, the flexibility, and the reserves to navigate whatever turbulence is waiting up ahead.
And that really leaves us with one final question to think about. Whether you're managing a multi-billion-dollar dam or, just a small team project at work, it's worth asking, is your project built to follow a rigid plan, just hoping the weather stays perfect? Or is it built with the capacity to bend, to adapt, and to survive when that storm you never saw coming finally hits?